All right, welcome to the second video in the permaculture series that I'm going to do. God knows how many there'll be. There'll probably be hundreds of these. But today I'm going to, kind of breach what I consider kind of a touchy subject. I'm going to talk about the Prime Directive and the 3 ethics, and I'm probably going to do a second video even going deeper into the 3rd ethic after this one. And there's a reason. And that reason is that I have seen the ethics and the Prime Directive cause a lot of damage in permaculture. I've seen it cause people to move away from the movement that would probably be great permaculturists. I have seen it cause people to get kind of a, what I would call almost like an evangelical zeal for permaculture in a way that when they go out and do it, they push other people away from it. So here's what I mean by that. I believe fundamentally that there's no place for politics in permaculture. And the founder of permaculture, Bill Mollison, seems to agree. If you ask me politically, is permaculture left or right or center or socialist or Republican or whatever, if you forced me to put a word on it, I'd call it anarchist. Because each individual is responsible for each individual's own self, family, and children. And we can get that straight out of the Prime Directive, because the Prime Directive, and I know there's a glare here, and I'll work on some way to fix this for future videos, or I just won't put a lot of stuff up in this area of the board, so it may be hard to read, but the Prime Directive is, the only ethical decision is to take responsibility for ourselves and that of our children. Now, sometimes people say, well, if that's the only ethical decision, I'm not sure that I'm on, somebody tell, okay, here's the thing. And usually it's people that are of the right persuasion that have a concern that, permaculture is nothing but a bunch of hippie stuff, right? I can't think of a more consistent statement from that segment, that political segment of society, than people should be responsible for themselves and their kids. I agree, and so does the Prime Directive. Now, it's a little bit bigger, because the goal is to take responsibility for our own existence as a species, and the existence of everybody's children, not just our own. But you notice the Prime Directive doesn't say the only ethical decision is to take responsibility for the existence of everybody and the existence of everybody's children. The word is ourselves. Now when you say ourself, what are you talking about? You're talking about you, yourself, and everybody that voluntarily is part of your group of ourself. And usually it's your family. It's your nuclear family. And your children are, well, your children. So it's very much an individual statement. And that makes the decision of exactly how to do it up to you. But it does mean that at this point, that if you awaken enough to realize that we do have problems out there, that you have to take responsibility at least for yourself and for your children. As someone that's a modern survivalist, I find that very refreshing. That's exactly what I want my audience to do. I want them to be responsible for themselves and for their own families, so that at a time of disaster, they can be part of the solution instead of part of the problem. All right? Now, the next one is the ethics. And it's the 3rd ethic where we can have it become a 3rd rail if we're not careful. The first one's care of the earth. Now, I usually don't have a big problem getting over a hurdle with people on this one, because what they say is, well, I don't know, that sounds like a bunch of that, eco-environmentalism. You know what? I don't even want to have the conversation, because all of a sudden we're going to start going into policies and procedures and politics. And if we're doing that, we're getting out of this world here of permaculture. Because care of the earth is simple. Are you for care of the earth? Well, stop. The only thing you're for, if you're not for taking care of the earth, is not taking care of the earth. So do you want the earth destroyed? Do you want the earth... Well, no, I don't want that. Do you think your neighbors should just be able to throw their garbage out in the street? No, of course not. So what happens is, based on their political ideology, people are dragging baggage into here that doesn't belong here. It's a simple concept. If you're harming the earth, it's not permaculture. And there's things we can debate about, but there's plenty of things that there's no debate about. If we dig a giant hole to get coal out of it, and we dig down into a sulfur layer, and the sulfur goes into the groundwater and oxidizes a creek, and the sulfur basically rusts the water, robs the oxygen out of the stream, and kills the life in the stream, that's bad. And no matter what you think about carbon, CO2, whatever, we still can agree. So at least we can come to an agreement that based on being intelligent beings, we can look at certain things and go, if that's hurting the earth, we're not going to be doing that anymore. And it's up to you to figure out how that impacts your life. The second one is care of people. And this should put a lot of people at ease. Because there's a lot of people, right, when they hear the third ethic, they're going to say, oh, wait a minute, that's eugenics. That's reducing the population of the planet. That's not permaculture, because if it's hurting people, if it harms people, it's not permaculture. And the beauty of this Prime Directive in 3 ethics is if you're a reasonable, rational person that's actually interested in solutions, the 3 of them all counter each other and overcome every objection that you could possibly have. So care of people is up to you, but we know when we're harming people. Right? If we're exploiting people, if we're taking away their resources from them so that they can't be self-sufficient, we're harming them. So it's not permaculture. So care of people, care of the earth. Most people can agree on those. It's the third one. People start to get a little wonky on. Set limits to population and consumption. Now people look at that and they go, that sounds a lot like eugenics, right? That sounds a lot like, there's 300 and some odd million people in the United States, and there only should be 150 million of them, so 170 odd million of you people got to go. That's not what this is, because that would not be taking care of people, would it? I'd be harming people. If we're harming people, it's not permaculture. So what is this really about? Setting limits to population and consumption. If we create a world of abundance, if we want to take it to the human population equation, we can do that. If we create a world of abundance where people have their immediate needs met, they're not starving, they're not dying, they're not suffering, and we can't do that for people, all we can do is say, here's a way to do it for yourself. And as we do that, the population will moderate itself. Population of the planet is already about to go into decline. Bigger decline than most people want to believe. If you want to do something, look up demographic bomb and watch that on YouTube, and you'll see where the population direction's headed already, and it's due to prosperity. It's not due to famine. When people are not sure of their safety, they have lots of kids. When people are sure of their safety and they feel relatively wealthy, they have less children. The U.S. birth rate's like 1.63 right now. That means if that continues, there'll be less people in this country 50 years from now, no matter what anybody does, because people are just reproducing at a lower level. So that's one way to, if you want to go there, and you don't have to go there, because this is how this applies. We can only sustain so much of a population of anything on a given piece of land. So let's be simple about this and understand it. If I have 10 acres and I want to put 100 head of cattle on there, that doesn't work. Anybody with a brain would tell you, you know what, that doesn't work. That land does not have the carrying capacity sufficient to handle that many cattle. So I have to limit the population on that particular tract of land that I'm managing and designing of cattle. If I want to grow the amount of corn on that land that would normally be grown on 50 acres, I can't do that either, right? I have to limit the population. I also have to limit my consumption. I have to limit my consumption because if I'm growing cattle and I only have, let's say, 5 head of cattle, and I can do that, let's say on 20 acres instead of 10. So I've got 5 head of cattle. If I slaughter a cow a month for 5 months and I haven't reproduced any, and I can't reproduce them fast enough to replace one a month, then my population of cattle is not sustainable. I'm going to have no more cattle left because I've overconsumed. If I have a 10-acre lake and it's full of fish, and I fish it with a rod and reel a couple times a week and take a few fish home and eat, I could probably do that forever. If 10 people do that, we can probably do that forever. If we start fishing it with nets, or we start bringing 1,000 people in to fish the pond, and everybody's taking out 10 fish a day, it's not going to be long before we've killed the population of the pond off. That's what the third ethic's really about. Now, there's people that want to change it from return of surplus, which is another way to understand it, and another way, this is how it's explained by Jeff Lawton when he does a PDC. We should be returning surplus, and I'm going to get deeper into this in the next video. But if we look at it from another standpoint, people call it fair share. And the problem with fair share is, as soon as people want to start talking about it, they start saying what their opinion is about what's fair in your world. To me, that doesn't work. So I can make fair share work, I can make return of surplus work, I can make this setting limits to population work, and I'll come back in the next video and I'll go deeper into the third ethic, because to me it's the one that causes the most heartache and pain. And if you're going to study permaculture, you're going to run into it, and I want you to be equipped to deal with it your way and not be derailed by it, so you can do all the great solutions that permaculture really has to offer. Before I do that next video, though, I want to end with this. This is, and I'll post the link in the video notes here for you, so all you have to do is click the link and you can go read this for yourself. The founder of permaculture is Bill Mollison. He was assisted by a research student named David Holgram. And I think David is part of the problem with the third ethic debate, but I also think he's a great guy and he's done some amazing things for permaculture. But Bill's the guy that really did it. Without Bill, there is no permaculture. And when he was interviewed, he was asked, is this a revolution? And this is what his answer was. Permaculture is anti-political. There is no room for politicians, administrators, or priests, and there are no laws either. The only ethics we obey are care of the earth, care of people, and reinvestment to those ends. The third ethic is designed to create reinvestment to care of the people and care of the earth. But if there are no politicians, administrators, or priests involved, who decides for you how you accomplish this? It's pretty simple to me. You do. And I think if we can agree that these are good ethics and not fight about exactly what they mean to us, that we can all be at peace with everybody else doing this their way. And we can stop trying to take our viewpoint and force it onto people. That's what this was designed to be. This was not designed to be divisive. It was designed so that there could be a core ethical agreement, and then everybody could just go, okay, that's good, and let's go focus on solutions. So that's what I want to do next. I do want to go into this third ethic, though. I want to talk about it at a higher level and understand why what I've explained to you actually makes sense if the goal of permaculture is self-replicating systems that are sustainable. And I believe that is the goal. So with that, it's the end of this video. Tune into the next one.